I'm not going to play an open tonight. As a wrestling fan, it sucks, but I mean, what are you going to do? Terry Funk, one of the best in the wrestling business, one of my favorite wrestlers. And listen, everybody wants to go ahead and talk about Chainsaw Charlie and all the work he did with Mick Foley. Sure. Okay. You can talk all that what you want, but that was towards the end of his career. But that does not define who Terry Funk is and the amazing decades of work this guy did. All right. Going back to all the stuff he would have done in the 70s that I never got to watch. In the 80s, watching him in NWA. And, you know, wasn't always there, right? And then what? The best memories I ever have of Terry Funk, besides him working ECW's Barely Legal, the very first pay-per-view for them in 1997, was his feud with Ric Flair. 89, 90, right? When he comes back from Hollywood, he's dressed to the nines, basically almost like tuxedo type, right? And he comes out after Ric Flair wins, retains the World Heavyweight title, right? And puts him through a table. Ric Flair pile driven through a table. When we didn't see that, but that was, you know, everybody remember that moment and that feud beginning and Terry Funk becoming the full-fledged heel that we've always seen him to be. Always great as a heel. Fantastic as a heel. But then also, that's the best heel moments I'll ever remember of Terry Funk. But when you tell me about the babyface moments, ECW. Put him on the map. He was integral to what that industry was all about, to what the wrestling business is all about. Dave Meltzer puts a lot into this. Dave Meltzer makes a point in his own obituary to Terry Funk that he was the ultimate dichotomy, one of the most universally loved people within the wrestling business, one of the greatest working heels in history. Absolutely. Absolutely. You couldn't help but hate the man. When he was a heel, he was ruthless and diabolical and crazy and nuts. And before the hardcore legend deal was a hardcore legend, that was him. He looked like a guy that you just don't want to fuck with, man. Just that was a guy that looked like he could beat the piss out of you, and it looked like as much. Now, Dave Meltzer goes a lot into what he was going on through the last couple of years. That he's been in poor health ever since his surgery in 2016, suffering a hernia. He was ordered bed rest after surgery. Tommy Dreamer was promoting some shows. Dreamer was like a son to him. Didn't want to miss the shots, but the drive that led to be one of the kind performer was his doing. Damage was done. One specialist after another was never able to fully fix it. And the man who probably told me a dozen or more times over his more than 30 years he was going to retire, was always going to change his mind, was in his 70s, and the instincts were there to perform. And it's true. You ever hear him talk? I never heard him on like Stone Cold Steve Austin or I think with Jim Ross. Terry Funk just didn't want to retire. He would have just died in the ring. He probably would have been happy. Now, one of the things that also didn't help for him is that he was had his wife Vicky that passed away in 2018, was in love with her since they were in the same class in 6th grade. Together from that point on, went to college, was a football star. She was a cheerleader. They got married, and they divorced when he was traveling as the world champion in NWA. 1977, holding the title signified him being one of the top guys in the business. Voluntarily gave it up to win Vicky back, and they got them back together and remarried. Damn. 1977, he was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. At the same time when you would have a Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes that would have held that belt, he was there, and he was champion. And he wanted to make sure, there was something about his life that he wanted to make sure. So she appreciated wrestling, but I can recall sitting with her during a bloodbath match, telling me as her husband was in the ring with barbed wire that she sometimes, like at that moment, hated pro wrestling. And Terry would do everything to get a match over and get his opponent over. He never bragged about being the best worker. He didn't have to. 1989, Nashville, Tennessee, was preparing to shoot the angle with Ric Flair that gave him all kinds of awards. He knew many that in WCW thought he was too old and too injured and were critical of the idea of bringing him back as a top heel. He told me right before he shot the angle that those people didn't understand because it was going to draw money. WCW wasn't doing well at the time. Right. Horseman already kind of like fizzled out, and Really the end of the 90s were rough times with WCW. So to get Terry Funk to come back and do this with Ric Flair after the Steamboat stuff, yeah, it's very true. Flair versus Funk was the best drawing series WCW had until basically the NWO. He had supreme confidence in his ability to get over and his instincts until he realized one thing had changed. He was working a WWF taping, Shotgun Saturday Night. He was just a guy booked on the show. But he knew exactly how he would steal the show. He did his thing. The small crowd reacted. He went home and watched it. TV cameras never focused on him, and what he was doing to get over to the live crowd wasn't aired. He wasn't the chosen one. After that show, he told me that things had changed, and the only way to get over is if they wanted you over. And today, with the current audience, he probably would have proven his own statement wrong. His passing is going to bring forth a flood of memories for any wrestling fan over multiple decades. It goes without saying, one of the greatest wrestlers who ever lived. And I will second those sentiments with Dave Meltzer. Had different roles, different looks, different style of performances, all based on time and place. He was one of the great teachers, always accepting the changes, but never forgot the past. Terry Funk is the epitome of what pro wrestling's all about. The best of professional wrestling. And one of the toughest MFers you would ever find. And I've been going back and looking at videos and all. I went back and saw the Nashville incident and just going across. And just to go more into his background, New York Times always does a good job doing these kind of obituaries. They make the first mention also in the subheading that he was in the 1989 Patrick Swayze film Roadhouse. He was one of the goons for Brad Wesley. Fantastic. He was memorable in the role. Death was confirmed on Wednesday by WWE. And they try to say that this is Terry Funk's career exploded with the company. No. He was well known well before WWE ever got hands on him. In the mid-90s. No. His career began in the mid-60s, lasted 4 decades, took him around the country, around the world, sold out to entertaining fans with All Japan Pro Wrestling, was a fierce wrestler who could wield many kinds of improvised weapons, chairs, ladders, barbed wire and bats, trash cans, and fire. Many of the highlight reels show Terry Funk was a bloody mess. He didn't have the chiseled six-pack built typically expected of a professional wrestler, but his frame was wide, grappling of opponents was precise, displayed a barbaric creativity inside the ring that earned him his respect among his peers. By the way, damn good promo cutter, too. He had everything. He had everything you wanted as a wrestler, and that guy could get himself over well into his 50s. If he was still on television, he could get noticed. That guy was still out there. And people gave a shit. Incredible. Ric Flair mentioned on Twitter or on X today that he never met a guy who worked harder than Terry Funk. Mick Foley, the greatest wrestler he ever worked with. Terry Funk was born June 30th, 1944 in Hammond, Indiana. His father, Dory Funk Sr., was also a wrestler. And after his father finished his tour duty in the South Pacific during World War II, family relocated to Texas, where eventually we'd hear about the Double Cross Ranch. One of the great ranch names that are out there. And Texas, where Terry Funk's love and familiarity with the sport deepened, 1965 made debut for his father's wrestling company, went to the WWF in 1985, WrestleMania 2 in 86, he and his brother Dory Funk wrestled Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog, went to WCW in 89, one of the most acclaimed matches of his career against Nature Boy Ric Flair. A 20-minute contest hit on that show was an I-Quit match in which both men would scuffle and fight until one man surrendered. And if you don't mind, I want to play a quick clip of, by the way, WCW that time for me, I'm still a fanboy for. You know, you got Jim Ross and Bob Caudle out there in commentary. I don't know if it was in this clip, but I'm pretty sure it was. And if it wasn't him, it was probably Jesse Ventura and Gary Michael Capetta, the world's most dangerous announcer, also doing the work in there. So let me go ahead and play a quick clip because it's still one of the culminations of one of my favorite feuds, along with one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Ric Flair, there has to be in that mix one of the best guys he ever danced with in the ring. There's Ricky Steamboat, there's Dusty Rhodes, and then there's Terry Funk.
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Jim Ross scored in solo commentary. Great.
Well, I'll tell you something. To think that we may be seeing the last... Oh, he's got it up! Suplex him on the apron! Up from the outside, inside back out. And now ripping the leg right across the apron. And Flair now moving like a man.
Terry Funk, a good seller, by the way.
Just a crazed inspiration. Funk's chest is a battered red and blue. The contusions are quite obvious. There it is! There it is! He's got the figure 4!
No!
That puts pressure on 5 different points. The pain is intense.
Never! Never!
He's got the figure 4. How much?
Oh, God, never! Never!
You can hear him say never. Yeah, and we're liable to hear a leg snap, too.
Oh, Tommy Young, the referee, by the way.
He's got that thing locked completely in. He's got it deep in there. Gordon, have you ever seen anybody last this long in the figure 4?
My leg,
It can be reversed. It can be reversed. But
Yes, I quit.
He said it. He said it. I can't believe it. Gary Hart is livid, but Ric Flair has won it.
Oh, and I forgot Gary Hart was the manager at the time with Terry Funk. One of the greatest managers out there, Playboy Gary Hart.
Terry Funk said,
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the match, Nature Boy, Ric Flair!
That's just good stuff, man. Let me tell you. That just gets me fired up just listening to that and watching it right now. It's the best. Hold on, there's Terry Funk.
Gary, I promised the people I went to. I'm going to shake his hand like I said. You're a hell of a man, Ric Flair.
Give it to me better
than me.
It's all right.
And that's how they worked out that feud right there, man. I'll tell you what. Great stuff. Terry Funk, man. In 2000, in his mid-50s, he returned to WCW, winning the United States Championship and the WCW Hardcore title belts. Final match with WWE was 2006. He also was in the film Paradise Alley alongside Sylvester Stallone, playing the character Frankie the Thumper in 1978. And he did write a autobiography, Terry Funk More Than Just Hardcore. He wrote about his fond memories of listening to his father talk about wrestling. His eyes would sparkle, his dad says, with pride when they talked about the tough guys in the profession and the crazy ones. When I grew up, I was fortunate enough to live the wrestler's life, a life that gave me stories to tell, just like the ones I heard as a boy. Pirates, millionaires, kings, and adventures have nothing on me. I would trade my life with no one. It's just incredible. And it's a shame. And you know what? I almost feel like I need to go back. And I never got to watch any of his work in the 70s and see what he's done. But I should go look back and see all that, because there's just so much you can put out there to what he's done. And let's just put it like this too. He was not just noticed for his wrestling acumen. Terry Funk was also noticed by Hollywood. Okay. I'm looking right now. Deadline.com also reports on the fact that he was in Roadhouse in 1989. He was in Paradise Alley with Sylvester Stallone in 1978. And they make the point where they do a pretty good job of summarizing the fact that Terry Funk had been World Heavyweight Champion in ECW, the USWA, and the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. In terms of, also you had won the WWF Tag Team titles, the ECW World Television title. By the way, they say he headlined their annual pay-per-view event, November to Remember. Well, he might have. Oh, 3 times. Oh, okay. But they didn't make mention of Barely Legal. But anyway. And Terry Funk has been inducted to multiple Hall of Fames, WWE, WCW, NWA, and Hardcore. Film and TV credits he included was a bouncer in the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. He was also featured in Barry Blaustein's wrestling documentary Beyond the Mat in 1999. Also appeared in movies like Paradise Alley, The Ringer, and Over the Top. And he also appeared in the short-lived Western Wild Side TV series in 1985, choreographed the street fight between Rocky Balboa and Tommy Gunn at the end of Rocky V. That's interesting. Also, the short-lived career in music, he released the album Great Texan in 1984, which fans considered a cult classic. So there's much more to that, what he's done. Quite interesting. There's not much more I could say about the man that other people are not going to go ahead and be able to herald and make mention of. But you know what? I wanted to make sure off the jump, we talk about Terry Funk here on the program. I wanted to make him the focus of the first minutes of the episode because he deserved it. It was a big deal. And I can go back and looking and just seeing what he's done in terms of his career and what he's been able to do. I mean, I just go back right now and I'm looking at matches with him and Bruiser Brody, him and Stan Hansen, and so many others that are out here. Everything was done in terms of watching what was extreme before ECW was extreme. If you want to talk about a guy that would do it and would be just out there getting himself cut up and bloodied and battered just like anybody else, he would. Eddie Kingston actually made a point where he talked about on what happened when Tony Schiavone makes a point where he was talking about Bryan Danielson one night. And I said, Bryan Danielson is probably the best professional wrestler I've ever seen. My phone lights up. It's Eddie Kingston. It's Terry Funk, you fuck. And then Kingston weighed in saying, I'm sitting there after hernia surgery watching Dynamite on one of the fucking Turner stations, and I hear the blasphemy coming out of Excalibur and Schiavone's mouth about Bryan Danielson being the GOAT. I said, absolutely not. I cannot let this go. I got a group chat with a guy, so I got, hey, fuckos, it's Terry Funk, the greatest of all time. And by the way, Bully Ray talks about Terry Funk today, and I'll play this from Busted Open early today.
I was one of only 12 people that got to go to the Big Texan Steakhouse in Amarillo, Texas, and sit with Terry to have dinner with him. And I got to sit next to Stu Hart. I was in ECW for about a year, and there I am at Terry Funk's retirement dinner, along with a small group of people. I'm sitting next to Stu Hart. Stu Hart is bending my wrist underneath the table where I wanted to scream. And then the next day I get to wrestle on the show. And Terry hands me my check. And to this day, I still have that check. I never cashed it. I'll take a picture of it along with Terry's book and what he wrote to me. And I'll post it on social media. I never cashed that check because it was an absolute honor to be able to wrestle on that show. And I didn't want Terry's money.
There's so much. MLW also putting tribute for Terry Funk. Every wrestling company made points to talk. Also, great picture. Somebody puts up here MLW where Terry Funk and Abdul the Butcher, they had their share of fights. Oof, a lot of stuff here. And also the great moment where Terry Funk was in the ring with Cactus Jack and all the chairs getting thrown in the ECW arena or at an ECW match.
Life! Oh my God!
And that's after they beat Public Enemy. That's the kind of stuff, man. It was just, what incredible stuff, man. But Terry Funk, man, what an incredible wrestler. It's just, it's amazing they're going to talk. Terry Funk, Triple H also makes a point. Every night in cities all over the world, Terry Funk left it all in the ring for our business and for the fans, an icon of our industry. My thoughts are with his family, friends, and fans, and so much more. And here's Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes back in, looks like Georgia Championship Wrestling back in the 70s. Take a look at this. Take a listen to this.
Let me tell you something. As I fought you from Maine to Mexico, and you tried to break my back in Kansas, and I broke your arm in Florida, and we've got one thing in common, whether you know it or not. Whether you know it or not, is that we've got that fire down below, and I have never asked you for anything, but it's my only way. And I ask you right now to take me as your partner in that match against those other guys. I know that you might think that I'll double cross you, but I got something right here. And this right here means more to me than anything else I've had in my life. This is my father's watch, and it's a Rolex watch, and it's the only thing that I have of his. And I know money doesn't mean anything to you, but it's the only way. It's the only way. If you'll be my partner, I'll let you hold this watch in your hand right here. I'll let you take that watch as my father's, and my father's been gone a long time, and it's all I got from him, and you take that watch right there. You take it, and you hold it, and you let
Terry
me
Funk always
be
had a lot
your
of passion when it
partner,
came down to things,
even
especially in
though
the
I hate
promos.
your guts.
Especially the early days,
Let me
going a
tell you
lot.
something. Don't
Even
you
with the
ever
Ric
put
Flair
your hands on me
promo,
like
where the
that.
heel turn came.
Don't you ever put your hands on me like that. I'm going to take the watch because I know it's your soul. I know it's your body, your blood, and your soul. And it's going to take somebody just as evil and as low down and low life as you to kick their butt. But I'll take your watch. You something on me, baby. Let me tell you something.
There you go. So there's just so much here to go and make mention of that happened. Oh, by the way, Terry Funk and Roadhouse, which is one of my favorite movies, but I got to make a point here.
I can do that without you.
Get him out of here now.
Oh, come on, man. Get your hands off me.
If you're not drinking, you're out of here.
Might not have the biggest role, but was always a very important role in that Red Roadhouse. And very memorable as well. Got to make that point too. All right, there's not much more I got to say about Terry Funk. I just wanted to take some time, hit the record button, and just talk about how important he is in the industry, and it really was. So, one of the best, Godspeed Terry Funk. And I'm guessing he'll be laid at rest in Double Cross Ranch, and you know what? One of the best. A lot of great tribute to him here on the program, and that really is great stuff. Love all that right there. Now, that goes aside from the fact that we got a very busy weekend of wrestling coming in front of us, and I'm just going to talk about the matches themselves and not go too much more into the weeds about it. So, because there's a whole lot to cover this weekend, okay? Because let me put it to you like this. Now, first off, we have NWA, 2 nights, NWA 75. We have AW All In and Impact Emergence. What? Which way? All In and NWA 75. Let's go and go real quick into NWA 75 and what we got so far. The current match is set up. One of the real featured matches of the night, or at least of the weekend, Camille against Natalia Markova, NWA World Women's title. The Burke, and I will take Camille to continue to hold on to that belt. I don't see anybody else that's going to take. I think La Rebellion, Bestia 666, and Mega Wolf will beat Blunt Force Trauma, the team of Carnage Damage. And the Burke Invitational, don't know all the participants yet, but if I was going to pick somebody out of this group, I'm going to take Samantha Starr. Out of Allison Kay, Heather Monroe, Sierra, Ruthie J, CJ, MJ Jenkins, and WOAD, and Taylor Rising that we know so far. NWA US Tag Team titles, I will take the Fixers over Daisy Kill and Talos. I'll take Colby Carino to become the new NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, beating Kerry Morton. I will take Thrillbilly Silas Mason to win the vacant NWA National Championship over Odinson and GR Kratos. The NWA Women's Tag Team titles, I will say Pretty Empowered will take those belts back, and they will beat Missa Kate and Maddie, the team of N95. I will take Tim Storm to beat Jack Stane. Matt Cardona still at this moment does not have an opponent, but he will be wrestling on the card as well. There's all that right there. There's been quite a few changes, it sounds like, for All In, AW All In that we have so far, which is a big weekend coming up. They've done a very good job of putting up Adam JF and Adam Cole, getting that match set up. I think having the two tonight with Renee Paquette and building that up and creating the animosity with Adam Cole with some of the things he's done, showing some evidence that he's been not too particularly good to MJF throughout and makes MJF look better as a result. That was important. The issues with Roderick Strong on the Kingdom, that's also got to get played out throughout the night at Wembley Stadium. So at the end of it all, I guess Adam Cole's going to win the damn belt. I'm still going to stick with that. I think Adam Cole will win the world title. I think it's because of the fact that it's going to be this Wembley Stadium show. They're going to put that out there like that. CM Punk, Samoa Joe for the real world title. And I'll take CM Punk to win. Now, there was a talk about Cash Wheeler getting into a road rage incident. He got arrested. That made a big story around. But, you know, he's still going to make the show. I'm not going to get into the details of what he did and, you know, what happens to him after this. But FTR and Young Bucks, I think FTR retains the belts. Women's World title, Hikaru Shida will defend the title against Toni Storm, Saraya, and Britt Baker. And I will take Britt Baker to take that belt back. I think she retains the belt. She gets it back after all this time, and she'll win the Women's World title once again. Because they need her back into the mix of the Women's World title right now and put her in if they're going to put her with the Outcast or anybody else they got. Britt Baker, to put her back into that mix is a good thing, especially also because of the fact that Jamie Hayter's not there. Let's get her back into something more prominent, which would be really good. Now, originally, the coffin match was going to be AR Fox and Swerve Strickland, but a storyline was built up tonight where Swerve Strickland is dropping AR Fox and looks like he's no longer persona grata in the Mogul Embassy. And the word is now Christian Cage will team up with Swerve Strickland against Darby Allin and Sting. And the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles, we know MJF Adam Cole will go up against Aussie Open. I'm going to take Aussie Open to win. But somehow MJF's going to get really screwed that night. That's what I think what's going to happen. It'll be too bad if MJF doesn't get to be the champion at the end of it, but I think they're going to do something where MJF's going to be booked to not be the champion at the end of the night. He'll come in as champion, but I guess they're going to go to Adam Cole for it. That's what I feel like. Now, I'm going to say it like this. I want MJF to win. I don't care about MJF losing the tag title match. I want MJF to be World Heavyweight Champion coming out of Wembley Stadium. That's what I would like. But I don't think they're going to book it that way. I don't. Chris Jericho, Will Ospreay. Excellent job in the contract signing of what they said with each other. I think Jericho did a very good job putting Will Ospreay over. Will Ospreay doing a good job to make the point of how important the match is to him, and that Chris Jericho should not be denied about how important this match is to him either, and what Chris Jericho means to Will Ospreay. And then we move along. Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi versus Juice Robinson, Jay White, Konosuke Takeshita. I'm going to take the heels to win in that match. That's where I think things are going to go. Stadium Stampede, Blackpool Combat Club will now be joined with Santana or Ortiz coming back. So they're coming back as heels and joining the aligning with the BCC. Pretty big move, and great to see these guys back together now. And they'll take on Eddie Kingston, Lucha Brothers, Orange Cassidy, and Best Friends. So I'm going to take Blackpool Combat Club and Santana Ortiz, LAX, I'll still call them. Or, you know, what do you want to call them? I'll take them in that match as well. Take it like that. So the idea will be, I'll probably just cover everything on Sunday night. I will do AEW All In London, and I will do NWA 75 on the same show. We'll just put it all together. There's a lot to go through, and by the time I'll have the time to do that, I'm not going to record anything immediately after All In. So, of course, I'll do it Sunday night, and by that time, I'll have already watched NWA 75. So that's what I'm going to plan to do. And that's the show for tonight. And again, in tribute to the fact that we lost a wrestling legend tonight in Terry Funk, no music on the program. The tribute is there, and we'll keep the show short because I got a whole lot of recording to do this weekend. But anyway, Godspeed, Terry Funk. Come back for another Wrestling Is Real podcast because wrestling needs us.